The I'm Thankful Network, radio for inspiration, education, and collaboration. Show host and creator Sue Lundquist has the endless energy, compassion, and charisma to carry her mission. This mission of positive change and communication, while also creating a maintenance tool within a safe environment. Sue Lundquist and the other positive changing hosts for living a life of contribution. Weekly Monday through Friday, 9 to 10, or streaming live at I'mThankful.com.
Welcome, everyone. I'm Shauna Holm. You're listening to the I'm Thankful Network. My show is Ixchel Wisdom Radio with Shauna Holm. Ixchel is the Mayan cosmic mother. So my show focuses on aspects of the divine feminine wisdom, or I like to call it grandmother wisdom. So healing and the healing arts, traditional foods and herbs, natural medicine, the mysteries of Maiden Mother Crone, and much more. And today, my guest is an amazing doctor here in the Redmond area. He's a naturopath. His name is Dr. Tim Gerstmar. And I'm going to have Tim, Dr. Gerstmar, be a regular on this show because he is so knowledgeable on so many areas. He's a fantastic doctor. And you know, we all know who the famous people are. We all know who those people are. And at the same time, there are a number of people who are very quietly doing extraordinary work. And Dr. Gerstmar is one of those people. And I thought it would be really cool today to do a show on what is the difference between alternative medicine and conventional medicine, because a lot of people are really not sure. In fact, I have another naturopath friend of mine who said she had a patient come in who brought her husband, and her husband said, so is naturopathy a form of Wicca? And she was just like, okay, we still have ways to go, even in the Pacific Northwest. So with that, I'm going to introduce to you Dr. Tim Gerstmar, and let's talk about the differences between alternative medicine and conventional. Welcome.
Thank you, Shauna. Thank you for having me. Appreciate the chance to be on the radio today. And I agree with you. It seems like a no-brainer. A lot of people have an interest in alternative medicine. When I introduce myself to people, you know, they say, oh, that sounds great. That's awesome. And then they kind of have no real idea what it is. They say, oh, I take a multivitamin, therefore I'm doing alternative medicine, or I've heard something, or, I've heard Dr. Andrew Weil is really popular. People know about him, or Dr. Oz, Dr. Chopra, a few of the different doctors. And so they have an interest, but they don't really know what it means. And then, of course, we have this wonderful and terrible thing called the internet now, which people jump on. There's lots of information. And to be honest, lots of it's great. There's lots of good information out there for people. There's also lots of terrible information, really horrible information. Anybody can put up anything they want. And it's not so much information nowadays like it used to be before. That the real limiting thing was getting information, and it was hard to get. Now it's easy to get. But the hard thing to understand is what's good information, what's bad information.
Right.
So to start out, I just like to educate people, okay, what's the difference between conventional and alternative? They are different. We don't need to be really polarized and say, some people on the conventional side are going to say anything alternative is absolutely horrible and worthless and shouldn't be done. And then on the opposite side, you have people in the alternative community, saying that anything conventional is absolutely horrible, absolutely shouldn't be done, and it's the worst thing in the world. And I don't think that does service to patients. And ultimately, we're about helping people. And so that's what that's about. So explain that a little bit better today.
Okay,
yeah.
Great. And I'm so glad that you spoke to the polarization, because there is so much polarization in our culture on so many levels. And, divided we're weak. And I've always thought, gosh, if conventional medicine and alternative medicine put their heads together and work together cohesively, people would benefit in extraordinary ways, because there are strengths and weaknesses of both.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they talk a lot about integrative medicine today. Integrative medicine. You see hospitals touting how they do integrative medicine. And we'll kind of touch on that and answer a little bit, are they really doing integrative medicine? But we see things like, hospitals offering things like aromatherapy, yoga sessions. Some are offering acupuncture and various, massage and these type of things. And then touting a really integrative mindset. And so I don't want to spoil what we're going to talk about as we go through, but we're going to talk about, in my opinion, what alternative, conventional, and integrative really mean today. So.
Okay, cool. So let's start from the beginning.
Absolutely. So as you know, I'm a naturopathic doctor, so depending on who you talk to, that puts me in either a little bit of the alternative or the conventional camp. Most people consider me alternative. But the truth is that I'm alternative enough that conventional providers consider me an alternative provider, but conventional enough that many alternative providers consider me conventional.
Okay.
So naturopathic doctors, we tend to straddle the line between alternative and conventional. We get a medical school education. So 2 years with basically the same number of hours that any medical student going to a conventional medical school is going to get in things like anatomy and physiology, biochemistry, all of those basic sciences. And then the second 2 years of our 4-year doctorate program are, instead of focusing on drugs and surgery like conventional doctors do, we focus on what you would consider more alternative things. So therapeutic nutrition, diet and lifestyle, counseling, stress management, herbal medicine, homeopathy, manipulation, on and on and on. So our focus is a scientific base, a scientific medical base, then with a strong emphasis in alternative modalities put on top of that. So we end up being a hybrid, basically. We're the most medical of any of the alternative practitioners, and we're the most alternative of any of the medically trained practitioners as well. So a little bit about what we do.
Okay.
But let's go in to talk about now about the two philosophies. So what really is alternative medicine? Again, people come to me and say, I do alternative medicine. I take a multivitamin. Does that make you alternative or conventional? So we'll talk about first, who are the conventional providers? These are people like medical doctors, osteopathic doctors, nurses, physical therapists, all the different medical technicians, dentists, and a handful of others are kind of the mainstream conventional providers. You go to a hospital, these are the core of people you see. You're going to go into, any medical doctor's office. These are kind of the core of people you're going to see. Right. They're considered conventional practitioners. Then we think about, who is alternative. And so there's really a zillion and a half people who could be considered alternative. But some of the ones people might know, of course, obviously naturopathic doctors, then chiropractors, a big one, commonly understood, acupuncturists, different herbalists and homeopaths, yoga teachers, some massage therapists, and then, there's a large class of people, energy medicine workers, shamans, healers of various stripes and shades, and really like a million other people kind of falling under this banner of alternative provider. So we have one on one side, one on the other, and it's what really makes a difference between the two of these. And so some people are going to say, well, there's, a box that's conventional. Those providers I first mentioned, MDs, DOs, those are conventional. Anything that doesn't fit within that box is alternative. So that's kind of what most people are thinking about. Well, if I go to my MD's office and they don't do it, then it's alternative. I don't find that's a really useful, helpful definition for people.
Okay.
So a lot of people then turn and say, well, it's what they use, right? So if you use a pharmaceutical drug, you're obviously a conventional provider. But if you use herbs instead, well, then obviously you're an alternative provider. Or maybe it's the training you get. If you go to medical school, then you're a conventional provider. And if you do something else, then you're an alternative provider. And that's okay. I mean, there's talking about the polarization, we see a heck of a lot of polarization around that. People saying, well, whether pharmaceutical drugs are good or bad, or herbs are good or bad, or, lots of arguments about that. I don't find that's a really useful viewpoint for people.
Good.
So what makes the difference for me is philosophy. So the guiding principles that guide, obviously, how conventional providers act and how alternative providers act. And we're going to take a look at that. And when we do, things start to fall into place. So it's less about the name given to someone. Oh, that's a shaman, that's an herbalist, that's a naturopathic doctor, that's a medical doctor. But more understanding the philosophy behind the treatments that the people are using and the way they think about helping with illness.
Okay.
So we start off with conventional medicine. That's what we know. That's what most people are getting in our society. And the real, and again, I don't claim to talk about everything, but if we kind of distill it down, I think this covers the majority.
Okay.
So the goal of any conventional provider, obviously, is to try and make sick people better. Sounds really basic, but obviously, under the conventional system, when you're sick, you go to the doctor. When you're not sick, you don't go to the doctor. And their goal is to try and make you from being sick to being well again, and then keep people from dying. So we can talk a lot about how the conventional system focuses sometimes inappropriately on keeping people from dying when it's really their time. And that's a huge topic and very emotionally charged, but their goal is to keep people from dying. And so where does this take us? When you have the twin philosophies of trying to make sick people better and keep people from dying, we see, well, first of all, conventional medicine treats people like they're machines, right? So you're a very complex biochemical, physiologic machine. We talk about how we have little engines in our cells, and a lot of the way we talk about people are like a mechanic. Like, so if your hip breaks, you go into the mechanic and you get a new one put in, just like if something breaks in your car, you just like take it in, they replace it.
Right.
So has its place we're going to talk about, but again, I think, obviously, I believe we're more than just a fancy car, basically. Right.
We have the whole body, mind, spirit component.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so from this conception of the human as a machine, we come to a medicine that focuses only on treating physical, observable problems. Symptoms, right. So, even if people say, well, I'm depressed, what you would think of as more of a mental, emotional issue going on for someone, the focus has gone away from counseling, psychotherapy, to drug treatment. So again, we're going to address your depression by giving a Prozac or Paxil or what's called selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor or its like, which is going to work by changing the chemicals in your brain.
Okay, hold that thought. We're going to take a break, everyone, and we'll be right back in a few minutes. I've got Dr. Tim Gerstmar of Aspire Natural Health. Thank you. Hi, I'm Shauna Holm, host of eShell Wisdom on the I'm Thankful Network, Wednesdays live from 9 till 10 a.m. My book, eShell Wisdom, 7 Teachings from the Mayan Sacred Feminine, is a love letter to women. Ixchel is the Mayan cosmic mother, and her messages in this book encourage women to open to their true beauty through simple rituals of self-love and self-care. Wise woman author Susan Weed says of this book, quote, "If you dare to read it, you will be swept up in an astonishing inner adventure that will empower you deeply." The words of the grandmother's song echo in Shauna's words, end quote. This is a beautiful book to gift yourself and the women you love. It's available on Amazon.com and my website, www.shaunahome.com, ShonaghHome.com. My family has had cats for years, and every so often, the inevitable happens and one of them has an accident on the carpet. We all know how difficult it is to get rid of cat urine odors, but I have found the best product out there, Kids and Pets Stain and Odor Remover. Kids and Pets gets rid of urine odors permanently. It makes stains disappear, and it even works on the mattress if your child wets the bed. And what I love about Kids and Pets is that it's made entirely of enzymes, which means it's safe and non-toxic, no harmful chemicals, and it's a cruelty-free product. You can use Kids and Pets on carpets, fabric car seats, furniture, and your clothing. In fact, I was able to remove blue food coloring from a cotton blazer I thought I'd never wear again. Kids and Pets removed it easily. I am so glad I found this product because I am very careful about not bringing toxic chemical cleaners into my home. So try Kids and Pets for yourself. You will be thrilled. And look for them on Facebook. The Weston A. Price Foundation was created to put forth the research of Dr. Price, whose meticulous study of healthy cultures around the world has given us a foundation for traditional foods that promote vibrant health. The foundation is dedicated to restoring nutrient-dense foods to the human diet through education, research, and activism. The Weston A. Price Foundation supports organic and biodynamic farming, pasture feeding of livestock, community-supported farms, honest and informative labeling, and prepared parenting and nurturing therapies. You can join a local Weston A. Price chapter to attend monthly meetings and learn about these healing foods and practices. Creating community around healing foods is what Weston Price is all about. Check out their website, www.westonaprice.org. It's a virtual encyclopedia of information. Join the foundation and receive their stunning quarterly journal, Wise Traditions. Welcome back, everyone. This is Shauna Home with eShell Wisdom Radio. Today, we are with my fabulous guest, Dr. Tim Gerstmar, ND, of Aspire Natural Health. And I should say his website is Aspire, A-S-P-I-R-E, aspirenaturalhealth.com. And he is here in Redmond. We're so lucky. Okay, so we were just talking about, the differences right now between conventional medicine and alternative medicine. And when we left off at the break, we were the example was depression, and you're basically given a pill for depression, but the underlying causes of that are really not addressed.
Well, sure. So just really, really briefly, we said, so conventional medicine wants to try and make sick people better and keep people from dying. And what emerges out of that is treating the body as a machine, and then because the body is a machine, focusing on physical problems only.
Right.
So things like mental and emotional things, most doctors, even most psychiatrists whose specialty is devoted supposedly to treating those mental and emotional things, don't, by and large. So they treat it like a physical problem. So the example was an antidepressant. Changes the physical chemicals in your brain, and that's how most problems are treated. So the body's a machine, and we only treat the physical problems that machine has, like our car, basically. Right. So from there, another piece of this is that largely symptoms define the problem. So, for instance, eczema is an itchy, simply speaking, an itchy rash on the skin, and we can use a cortisone cream, and it makes that itchy rash go away. Problem solved, all done. We've taken care of the problem. Now, we would argue, of course, like that, and when we talk about, I'll save that for when we talk about the philosophy of alternative medicine. But again, largely symptoms define the problem. If there are symptoms, there are a problem. If there are no symptoms, there's no problem.
Right.
And then from all of this comes the sense that the body is so complicated, and what we have to do is so complicated that the only way to really know what to do is focus on less and less. So you specialize in a specific part of the body. And of course, if you've watched the news or heard the predictions, they're saying that general medicine doctors are on the steep decline, that most students are now going into some sort of specialty of medicine, and that there'll be, in the next 5-10 years, there'll be a real shortage of general medicine doctors. So the thought is, there's just too much to know, so we need to know more and more about less and less. And it can achieve, in my opinion, really ridiculous proportions, like a doctor who specializes in only treating the thumb. Right? And that has its place if you have a thumb problem. But what we see commonly, what I see in patients coming in, they may have their doctor and 3 or 4 specialists who all treat their little piece of the body, but no one steps back and looks at the body. And this will be, I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit here, but no one looks at the person as a whole or how everything interacts with one another. So the idea is look at more and more pieces. So if you go to a heart doctor and you say, hey, my stomach hurts, they'll say, well, that's not my job. You need to go see a doctor for the stomach. So it's this intense specialization of medicine.
Okay.
And so what we end up when we look at these points is that conventional medicine treats in one of 2 ways. If they can remove it, they do so. So if they can cut it out, burn it out, or blast it out, they take it out. If they can't, they use drugs to manage it. Again, drugs aren't necessarily, we're not polarizing here, so we're not saying drugs are good or bad. We're just trying to understand the way in which they work.
Right.
So what this means is conventional medicine does some things very, very well. And those include treating serious infections, traumas. So I always say if you're in a car accident, you're bleeding, don't go see an alternative provider. Go straight away to the hospital.
Right.
Get the very best conventional medical care you can. And then if you're really, really sick and on the verge of dying, you absolutely absolutely want to go to a conventional provider. That's what they do exceedingly well.
Okay.
But what don't they do very well? And so the first thing is minor things. So I say most of conventional medicine is like a sledgehammer. It's exceptionally powerful, robust medicine. But, you don't always need a sledgehammer to treat issues. If you're trying to put a nail in your wall, you don't really want to use a sledgehammer to do so. So we see with a lot of minor things, minor aches and pains, stomach aches, ear infections in kids, often conventional medicine is approaching the situation with medicine that's far too powerful for what we need to do.
Okay.
But more appropriately for most people, complex chronic problems, the conventional system just doesn't treat very well. It can manage things like high blood pressure, diabetes, for instance, manages fairly well with different drugs. But actually treating the problem, trying to get to the root cause and deal with it, the vast majority of people feel that they don't do a very good job with that.
I would agree. I mean, it really feels like symptoms are just suppressed with medications. And then, like you said, addressing the actual cause is not there. And I also feel like, there's all this talk about early detection. And early detection will then, of course, result in a pill or a procedure. There's very little talk about prevention, actual prevention and steps you can take. So, which I find alternative medicine addresses really well.
Well, absolutely. I mean, again, when we look at this premise, you don't go to the doctor when you're well, other than you may go and get a physical again every year or some basic blood work. But that's really early screening. So trying to see if there are any changes or something they notice, not to get into any controversy here, but the idea of like mammograms and these is like, well, if we can detect the cancer earlier, then we can, use our treatments earlier. We can cut it out. We can use, pills and different forms of medicine to treat it. But again, the focus, absolutely, like you said, is not on preventing it. People don't go to the doctor when they're well and say, how can I stay well?
Right.
Other than, obviously, stop smoking and lose weight, which are the platitudes you're going to hear all the time. But there's no real support for helping people do that most of the time. So that's helping people understand a little bit better what conventional medicine. So stepping beyond just the fact, they use drugs or they do this, they do that. It's really about understanding, generally speaking, the philosophy behind their care,
right,
and the things they do well and the things they do badly. I mean, one of the things, we'll wrap up here, but I'll say here is both systems of medicine, conventional, alternative, want to pretend like they do everything perfectly. And all you need is that one system. You need nothing else. It'll take care of all your problems. We don't see that in the rest of life, that any one solution can take care of every problem. And I think it's naive to think that that either conventional or alternative medicine will take care of every problem in life. Again, if someone's in a car accident and they're bleeding or they've chopped their arm off or something like that, please do not ever go to see an alternative provider. That's not what they do.
Right.
And then I would argue, if you're trying to cure things like diabetes, now this is a little complex. If you're drastically uncontrolled diabetic with complications, you could be one of those very sick people that absolutely needs to go to the conventional provider and get things managed under control so that you're safe. You're not at risk of having a very bad thing happen or dying. So I'm absolutely not saying that's not necessary.
Right.
But, if you truly want to move beyond just managing it, you want to see what can be done to treat and cure that problem. Sometimes it can be cured, sometimes it can't. That's another fallacy of alternative medicine, is to say that anything, anytime, anywhere can be cured. And sometimes, honestly, that's not true. But you'd be much better off seeing an alternative provider. And now we're going to talk, we'll segue into the philosophy of alternative medicine. So the base goal of alternative medicine is a little bit different again from what we saw. So conventional medicine makes sick people better, prevent people from dying. Alternative medicine, in contrast, the general goal is to restore health to people and help people live healthier lives. So what comes out of that is first and foremost a belief that the body has a power and intelligence to heal itself. I mean, I think anyone will agree when you cut yourself, even if you put stitches, you go to the hospital, you get stitches put in. The stitches themselves don't make the skin heal back together again. It's the body that does that. And, we've seen cases of had patients with cases where, they broke a bone really badly and had screws and plates put in to hold everything together, but then the bones didn't heal themselves back up. And the doctors, the conventional medical doctors, were left kind of scratching their head and trying to figure out how can we stimulate the body to get the bones to heal back together again. Because even with all of our technology, all this miraculous stuff, truthfully, they can do, still can't make the body heal itself. Right. And what this comes down to me is the analogy of the glass half full, a glass with half a container of water. So to me, the conventional system looks at this in a pessimistic way, glass half empty, says, we're very fragile beings. We have thousands of processes going in our body, and any time any one of those processes could fail and the person could get sick or die. And it's only through the ever vigilance of the medical profession, our scientific understanding, all of our high technology, that we are able to keep the human form from deteriorating and dying. And if all that medicine were to vanish today, everyone would die when they're like 25 or 30 years old, because the human body is a frail, fragile thing. In contrast, the alternative community, by and large, looks at the glass as half full and says, listen, the body is actually incredibly resilient. We've seen people racked with disease where they honestly should be dead, but they keep going. We've seen, this incredible healing capacity of the body. So while I never guarantee anyone they're going to heal, because unfortunately I don't have a crystal ball, I can't look in it and say you're going to heal. I've seen people with incurable diagnoses. Oh, you cannot possibly get better from that. Some of them do. So the body, in my belief, has an incredible healing capacity. And the difference, what this leads to is a difference between the mechanic, the conventional view. Things are broken. I need to go in, identify what those broken things are. Your spark plug's fouled, your carburetor doesn't work, your fan belt is broken, and fix those very specific things. That's a piece of what leads to that specialization we were talking about. In contrast, in natural medicine, we like to say the body can heal itself most of the time, not always. And our goal instead is to find out why the body can't heal. In other words, the body always wants to heal, but things may be preventing that from happening. So it's identifying those obstacles to healing and removing them and then letting the body heal itself. Very different perspective on how we treat.
Perfect. You're beautiful. God, this is so great. I love listening to Dr. Gerstmar speak. He has a wealth of information. You're listening to Ishel Wisdom with Shauna Home, and we'll be right back. If you are ready to change your life in a truly profound way, then I invite you to meet Elisa Silling, founder of Awake in Joy. Elisa is a gifted healing practitioner here in the Seattle area. She is a life coach, hypnotherapist, and spiritual guide. Elisa can induct you into your highest potential, helping you to overcome personal limitations, fears, anxiety, and stress. Working with Elisa, you will align with your life's purpose. Clients have experienced greater clarity and a sense of personal empowerment that has helped them create abundance on every level. Awake in Joy offers personal healing sessions, classes, and retreats. Sessions may be in person or by phone. Are you ready for a personal transformation? Check out Elisa's website, www.awakenjoy.com.
Hi, I'm Alicia Michelle from AstroAware.com, and I would like to invite you on a journey into your part of the dynamic, unified field. The moment you were born into this dimension, you became pure spiritual potential embodied in physical form. Quite literally, you display the energetic configurations within your very own psychological nature. You're composed of both spirit and matter. Separation is an illusion. As a transformational astrologer, it is my honor to share the sacred science with you and to facilitate your powerful journey into self-awareness and self-actualization. To learn more or to schedule a consultation, visit astroaware.com. Thank you, and many blessings.
Hi, I'm Shauna Home, host of Ishel Wisdom on the I'm Thankful Network, Wednesdays live from 9 till 10 a.m. My book, Ishel Wisdom, 7 Teachings from the Mayan Sacred Feminine, is a love letter to women. Ishel is the Mayan cosmic mother, and her messages in this book encourage women to open to their true beauty through simple rituals of self-love and self-care. Wise woman author Susan Weed says of this book, quote, "If you dare to read it, you will be swept up in an astonishing inner adventure that will empower you deeply. The words of the grandmother's song echo in Shauna's words," end quote. This is a beautiful book to gift yourself and the women you love. It's available on Amazon.com and my website, www.shaunahome.com, SHONAGHHOME.com. Hi everyone, welcome back to Ishel Wisdom with Shauna Home. We're here today with my guest, Dr. Tim Gerstmar, ND. He is an amazing naturopath and tremendously knowledgeable, and we are doing a foundational show together today. And Dr. Gerstmar is discussing the differences between conventional medicine and alternative medicine. So you'll be fully dialed in. And Dr. Gerstmar's website is aspirenaturalhealth.com. You can also find him on Facebook, and he sends out the coolest articles on Facebook, so I always read them. He's just a wealth of information. So let's return to where we were at.
Absolutely. So the goal today, again, is not to... So we see a big schism between alternative and conventional providers, and I always say we're a little bit like oil and water. They don't like to mix with one another. And our goal today is to step aside from that division, try and find out really what differentiates the two, and then we're talking about what conventional medicine's good at, what alternative medicine is good at. The goal, hopefully, for all of the listeners at the end of the session is they'll have a better sense of when it's appropriate to go to a conventional provider, when it's appropriate to go to an alternative provider, so they can take advantage of both,
exactly.
basically.
Great.
So we had talked about the idea of the glass half full, the glass half empty, and alternative providers tend to view the glass as half full and say, what a wonderful, powerful thing the human body is. And our goal is to stimulate that healing capacity that's within the body whenever possible. So from there, we talk about, most most alternative providers, and this is going to vary a little bit, but really view the human as far more than just a physical body, just a car, some sort of a machine. And most providers are going to really view the body as a combination of the physical, the body, the mind, and the spirit on some level. And so obviously that's going to vary with the beliefs of the individual provider, but pretty much alternative medicine believes in more than just the physical body. And so that health isn't just the well working of the machine we call the human body, but is also in mental health, emotional health, spiritual health. All of those things have to come together. And, I've seen patients in my practice who do everything they're supposed to be doing very well. They eat well, they sleep well, they exercise well. But despite all that, they're miserable. They're doing all these things because they should do them, not because they want to do them, not because they really understand them. And the mental, emotional, the spiritual parts of their life are tremendously unfulfilled. The conventional medicine, by and large would say, well, cheer up. Your blood work looks great. Your physical exam looks great. You're healthy. Most alternative providers would say, actually, no. While we would prefer everything were healthy, in contrast, we've seen, end-stage cancer patients very sick physically in terrible places, and they are going to die. But mentally, emotionally, spiritually, they've entered a really beautiful place. They're happy, they're healthy, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and it's a completely different feeling. Something really radiant shines out from behind their eyes. And so our ideal goal is not just physical health. It's to that combination of, a sound mind in a sound body, and
working together.
Right.
Yes.
Right. With a healthy, appropriate spiritual life for that person. So all of those things have to work. And so that leads us to our next point. Most alternative providers, instead of specializing, are going to generalize. They're going to move in the opposite direction. So people often ask me, what's your specialty? What's your specialty? Because they're used to going to a medical doctor and hearing about their specialty. Obviously, again, you don't go to the heart doctor for stomach problems, and you don't go to the gynecologist for, nervous disorders or, each doctor only handles their one thing. And it's a little confusing to people when they talk to me and they say, what do you specialize in? Now, again, just quickly, my area of emphasis is on endocrine problems and digestive health. Those are things I'm especially interested in, do a lot of extra research and work with.
Which is a good thing because tremendous numbers of people suffer from digestive issues.
Absolutely.
And gluten intolerance and all that.
Yeah, definitely can be a topic in further shows because there's a lot of great information that people don't understand and how, proper digestion is a big piece of being healthy. Mm-hmm. But we'll set that aside for the moment and just say, again, it's like the forest for the trees, right? So if we view humans as more than just physical, we view them as mental, emotional, and spiritual, it's important to back up and attempt to look at the entire person. So, someone comes in, and they complain of all these problems, and you back up, and you look at the person, you say, you know what the issue is? You need to quit your job. Now, not something people are used to hearing from the doctor, but sometimes absolutely the piece, or sometimes they need to end a bad toxic relationship in their life. Mm-hmm. It's not saying you don't address physical, but sometimes if someone comes in with stomach aches, here's an example. A man was diagnosed with irritable bowel syndrome, which doesn't really mean anything. It means constipation, diarrhea, abdominal pain. He had been to a couple of different doctors looking for answers for this issue. The conventionally symptoms. Take a laxative, take a stool softener, and good luck with that. So he was looking for answers. So we can talk physically, about all these issues that we can treat, but ultimately he was uncertain whether he wanted a divorce from his wife. He had a relatively new marriage, and he wasn't happy in it. They weren't communicating with one another, and they weren't sure what was going to happen. It was causing him a tremendous amount of stress. So got him in counseling. They resolved it. They decided to stay together, and all those symptoms went away. So just kind of, getting out the microscope and the magnifying glass and trying to look at things more and more deeply sometimes is incredibly useful and the right thing to do. But often in these complex issues, we actually need to take the opposite approach and step back from the situation, try and view people in their entirety, look at not only the physical, but the mental, emotional, the spiritual, and not only the system. So if someone has a stomach ache, obviously they have a problem in their digestive system, but they might also have a problem in their nervous system, their endocrine system, circulatory system, on and on and on. It might be, the primary issue might be in other areas of the body. And if we're a gastroenterologist and we focus exclusively on looking at the stomach and digestion, it's helpful sometimes, but it's also not helpful sometimes.
Right, you're missing the whole.
Right. Absolutely. And so we try and look at people as a whole, step back, and try and understand the person. So it goes from being, the infamous example of, doctors referring to people as their condition. Oh, I have ulcerative colitis in room 2. I have, diabetes in room 3. Really trying to step away from that and saying, okay, your name is Shauna. You have, kids and a husband, and this is what you love to do. And these are all important pieces of helping you become healthier.
I would say also in conventional medicine, they have no time to address those issues. I mean, that's another huge problem, right? I mean, what's the average time that a conventional doctor spends with its patient?
Sure. So, it varies. But most doctors, most of the time, are spending somewhere between 7 and 15 minutes with their patient. And sometimes, unfortunately, it's even less than that.
So how long, if someone came to you for the first time, how long do you spend with your patient initially?
Well, that's a great question. So that's what shocks some people. So a first visit for me is 90 minutes long.
Whoa.
Yeah, big difference in terms of the visit. And again, shocking to people. But my experience, the experience of my colleagues has been, if we're really trying to look at the whole person, in 7 minutes, you say, I have a stomach ache. I can say, okay, tell me about your stomach ache. And that's basically all you can tell. If you're one of those auctioneer people who can talk exceptionally fast, we can cover a little bit more. But, in 7 minutes, that's it. And so, again, most of the medical doctors I know are really kind, really caring people who absolutely are trying to do their very best for patients. But in that 7 minutes, give or take a few minutes here or there, you come in, they have to find out the attributes of your problem. So when did your stomach ache start? How long has it been going on? Other things going on. Then they have to check your medication, do a quick physical exam, do the coding necessary for insurance. And the best they're going to get for you is a drug most of the time, because they can just write a quick prescription and hand it to you instead of saying, well, let's talk about diet, let's see. And then there's education around diet. And so, my experience has been 90 minutes covers it for most people. We get a thorough understanding of who the person is. Follow-up visits then are usually about 45 minutes long. So I can segue into this quickly. I don't want this to devolve into this, but there's the whole issue of insurance. And so most of the reason that doctors' visits have gotten shorter and shorter and shorter is because of the way insurance works.
Well, they're shackled
to
the insurance companies.
Right. So, most doctors don't want to practice that way, to be perfectly honest. They want to get to know you. They want to take time with people, but they can't. So their schedules are typically anywhere from 20 to 30 patients over the course of a day, and sometimes more. And the insurance reimbursement works in such a way that, insurance very narrowly defines problems and gives a very specific allotted time in which to solve those problems. Naturopathic doctors, quickly, because people always ask, do you take insurance? Some do and some don't. The laws are are a little wonky in the state, honestly, and most insurance companies treat us as a specialist. So they consider us like a heart doctor, a lung doctor. They consider us a natural medicine doctor, and via their formulas, only so many are allowed per specific area. Because, you don't need like hundreds of cardiologists in an area, right? You only need a couple. Mm-hmm. So a lot of the bigger insurance companies are closed to us. Mm-hmm. So they say, oh, we have plenty. Thanks anyways. Mm-hmm. And then there's the very issue that, and some of my colleagues do absolutely fantastic work with insurance. My point, again, just like we're not trying to dog conventional alternative medicine. We're not trying to dog insurance and not taking insurance. But what I've found in trying to live this vision, live these philosophies that I'm outlaying today, is that insurance fundamentally gets in the way of doing that. So I'm actually what's considered an out-of-network provider. What that means is people pay me when they see me. Then I can do all the coding and paperwork game that every other doctor plays, but then it's the patient's responsibility. So I give those to every patient. They decide whether to submit those to their insurance company or not. And then depending on the company and the policy they have as their reimbursement. So again, my experience has been trying to live these, again, not good or bad, but trying to live these philosophies and give care to patients. That doesn't work. Okay, here we have a break coming up, so I'll stop.
Okay, thank you. You're listening to eShell Wisdom with Shauna Home, and we've got my guest, Dr. Tim Gerstmar. We'll be back in a few minutes. My family has had cats for years, and every so often, the inevitable happens and one of them has an accident on the carpet. We all know how difficult it is to get rid of cat urine odors, but I have found the best product out there, Kids and Pets Stain and Odor Remover. Kids and Pets gets rid of urine odors permanently. It makes stains disappear, and it even works on the mattress if your child wets the bed. And what I love about Kids and Pets is that it's made entirely of enzymes, which means it's safe and non-toxic, no harmful chemicals, and it's a cruelty-free product. You can use Kids and Pets on carpets, fabric car seats, furniture, and your clothing. In fact, I was able to remove blue food coloring from a cotton blazer I thought I'd never wear again. Kids and Pets removed it easily. I am so glad I found this product because I am very careful about not bringing toxic chemical cleaners into my home. So try Kids and Pets for yourself. You will be thrilled. And look for them on Facebook.
Courtroom dramas make for great television. But in real life, the participants are not actors, and storylines are not wrapped up in just an hour. If you or someone you know is going through any type of family or relationship transition, don't rely on the courts. There is a better way, a way that leaves your dignity and integrity intact. Discover the benefits of collaborative law. Billy Grissom, collaborative attorney, has years of experience helping clients find their own voice. She invites you to discover the abundant goodwill and personal empowerment that comes from the collaborative process. You decide the outcome. You decide what's important. You decide how to best protect your children. You decide what will be your new future. visit BillyGrissomLaw.com. That's BILLIE GrissomLaw.com. Find healing, self-growth, and your future at BillyGrissomLaw.com. You and your family are worth it. See BillyGrissomLaw.com today.
The Weston A. Price Foundation was created to put forth the research of Dr. Price, whose meticulous study of healthy cultures around the world has given us a foundation for traditional foods that promote vibrant health. The foundation is dedicated to restoring nutrient-dense foods to the human diet through education, research, and activism. The Weston A. Price Foundation supports organic and biodynamic farming, pasture feeding of livestock, community-supported farms, honest and informative labeling, and prepared parenting and nurturing therapies. You can join a local Weston A. Price chapter to attend monthly meetings and learn about these healing foods and practices. Creating community around healing foods is what Weston Price is all about. Check out their website, www.westonaprice.org. It's a virtual encyclopedia of information. Join the foundation and receive their stunning quarterly journal, Wise Traditions. Welcome back, everyone, to eShell Wisdom. I'm your host, Shauna Home, and I am here with my guest, Dr. Tim Gerstmar of Aspire Natural Health. We've been discussing the differences between conventional and alternative medicine, and when we left at the break, we were just discussing insurance, and I just wanted us to wrap it up a little bit because we're just talking about how it really, insurance shackles our MDs to the point where they have very little time with the patient. And Dr. Gerstmar doesn't work that way. And I just want you to just discuss this real briefly, because if you went to see a regular doctor and paid out of pocket, it would cost you about $800.
Right. So, give or take.
Yeah.
So, generally speaking, they're billing about $20 for every 5 minutes of care that you see them for, give or take again.
Okay.
So a 90-minute, people say, a 90-minute visit with me is $225. And people say, wow, that's incredibly expensive. And I get that compared to the $15 or $20 copay that people are used to paying for their insurance policy. Sure. But so many of the costs are hidden from patients. They're so obscure. And, an average doctor visit of about 90 minutes long, if you could find such a thing, would run somewhere between the $800 and $900 mark.
Right. And we're also speaking to level of care as well, because what someone is going to experience in terms of a level of care with you is quite extraordinary.
Well, yeah. I mean, my patients are very happy with the care they receive. And people grumble a little bit initially, many people at paying the price. And, some people decide not to pay the price with me. And often we follow up to find out, just to be sure they've gotten the care they're looking for. And oftentimes they haven't. Now, this is not to say if you get great care from your provider who takes insurance and you're happy, more power to you. Please keep using them. But so many of the people I see don't. They're so unhappy with the care they've gotten. And so what my goal in setting up my practice and doing what I do is to provide something different, to help all those people who aren't getting the help and care they need from the regular system.
Right. And I think so many people are looking to alternative practitioners because they're not receiving the proper care. They're not getting the information that they need. And I do know that growing numbers of people are willing to pay. They'd rather pay and get the care they need and then prevent what they can and stay really healthy, or really treat their illness in a way that is going to, basically, in many instances, cure it. So that's worth a lot of dough.
Right. Well, if you think, just in general, if you're put on a lifetime prescription of a pharmaceutical drug, which again, sometimes is very necessary, not saying, but often we find it's not. That adds up over time to be incredibly expensive. And we're finding, drug plans are covering less and less of the costs of many drugs.
Yeah, people are paying more out of pocket for this.
Right. Yep. So, again, let's swing. This could be a whole hour on insurance reimbursement. Again, no good or bad. They're just like conventional alternative medicine. Both providers who are accepting insurance and providers who are not are offering slightly different services.
Right.
Again, it's taking advantage of what you need. So let's within that vein, let's swing around. We're finishing the last tenet of the philosophy of alternative medicine is going to be about restoring balance to the body. Again, if we believe the body is intelligent, we believe that there's different levels to the body, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. It's about bringing balance back into that system and then letting the body heal itself, which very, very often it does absolutely wonderful, miraculous things. I mean, there are many case histories in my profession of seemingly incurable diseases, people given no hope, who then heal. Again, not everyone. We don't want to give false impressions and say that it can, this is one of the bad things you see on the internet, again, talking about bad information. Well, if you just do this thing, if you drink apple cider vinegar, you alkalize your body, you take this pill, you rub this lotion on, it can cure anything, any disease, anytime, anywhere.
Right. Well, which is very naive.
Right. And again, it falls back into that simplistic kind of, you have this disease, you take this thing, and it's all taken care of.
Right.
And that works very rarely, and often it doesn't. So what this means is, taking these tenets together, what does alternative medicine do really well? Because we've talked about what conventional medicine does well. What does alternative medicine do well? And so it does treat these kind of minor problems. Kids come in with ear infections, and very often, they don't need antibiotics. They don't need prescription drugs. They need some simple, what could be home remedies, what could be gentle natural therapies that take care of the issue all by itself. Don't breed the antibiotic resistance that using antibiotics for things that don't need it.
Well, and also antibiotics blow out all the good bacteria in the gut.
Sure.
And the gut is 80% of your immune system.
Sure.
So anyway,
Yeah. Grudgingly, people in the conventional community want to say, well, if that natural stuff really does anything, it's just to treat these minor things. But I would argue that what really well done, natural medicine can do is treat these complex chronic diseases. Diabetes is an example. So really quickly, 2 patients I saw not too long ago, both came in with blood sugars in the 300 range. Just to give you an idea, we want blood sugar below 100 to be normal. So frankly, diabetic. Both starting to suffer from complications of uncontrolled blood sugar. One had an endocrinologist, a diabetes doctor, managing her, not very well, I might add. The other had lost his insurance and had nothing. So, one of them needed to be on drugs. So again, I'm not the alternative provider that's just dump all your drugs. You don't need any of those things. Again, that's a naive viewpoint. Mm-hmm. Drugs have their place, and this patient absolutely needed the drugs that she was on. But neither patient was ever given any hope of really anything other than at best management for their cases. And now, a couple of months later, both patients have gone from blood sugars in the 300 to blood sugars about 110, 115. Still not normal, still a little ways to go for them. But the prognosis, the risks and dangers of their disease drastically changed. And it's just to let people know what you do has a profound impact on your health. I know we sort of go, yeah, kind of, but it really sincerely does. Finding a qualified, natural medicine provider who can guide you in that process is an important piece of your health journey. So what alternative medicine does well? Treat minor problems, treat complex chronic problems. What it doesn't do well, treat serious life-threatening infections, right? Mm-hmm. So if you have a very serious life-threatening infection, again, echinacea or any one of these other things is probably most likely not going to cut it for you. You really need the sledgehammer of conventional medicine to deal with it. Again, trauma and serious injuries, car accidents, falling, out of a building, mm-hmm. serious things where you're bleeding and broken and messed up. Don't go to a chiropractor. Don't go to a naturopathic doctor. Get to the hospital.
Sure.
Get it taken care of. And again, if you're really sick, go to the hospital. Get it taken care of. Mm-hmm. So again, it's finding what do alternative providers really do. So, who should you see? First of all, who are you comfortable with? So if you really like your MD, please go see them. I mean, but if you don't feel like that's your only option. There are a plethora of providers of different kinds and sorts out there, and you need to find someone at the end of the day you're comfortable with, you feel cared for, you feel you trust them, and they know who you are. Then think about your problem. So if it's a broken bone, go to the conventional doctor. But if it's a chronic, complex disease, I would highly suggest seeking out a well-trained natural medicine provider to work with you on that. Again, finding the strengths and weaknesses. Neither conventional medicine nor alternative medicine is the devil that people want to make it out to be. There are different ways of looking at the human body. There are different ways of treating health and disease in the human body. And and out of that philosophy comes different tools that we use. And it's using those tools. So true integrative medicine, to me, is not taking a conventional program and throwing in a little bit of massage and a little bit of yoga and saying, look how incredibly integrative we are. It would be using the different approaches to treat different problems. So I would argue that most of what we're seeing in terms of the conventional community trying to move to integrative, while I applaud it, I'm glad they're bringing in some of these alternative therapies, truly aren't integrative medicine because it's leaving out this philosophy of alternative medicine that we've been talking about.
Right. Thank you so much, Dr. Gerstmar. I am bringing Dr. Gerstmar back to the show in September, and he will be talking about gluten intolerance. And we're also going to have one of his patients here as well to speak to her experience because she had visited both conventional medicine and is now working with Dr. Gerstmar quite successfully. So we'll do that in September. Next week, my guest is Elisa Silling of Awaken Joy. We're going to be discussing meditation, shamanic practices, hypnotherapy. She's a very gifted healer here. Thank you, everyone. You've been listening to Ishel Wisdom on the I'm Thankful Network. Have a great day.
Thank you for tuning in to the I'm Thankful Radio Network. For more information about the show, hosts, and/or their guests, don't forget to log on to imthankful.com. That's imthankful.com.